listening to Sexually Charged Radio. I am your co-host, Ruthie. It is not Thomas today. Instead, I am here with...
Sarah.
And...
Michelle.
And Thomas will probably do some of his own episodes. Don't worry, Thomas and I haven't had a radio breakup. We just have agreed to record with other people. So, I am wondering, have you ever had a hard breakup?
Absolutely.
What made it hard?
I think that it was so unexpected.
Yeah.
I really thought things were heading in a different direction, and it was so sudden.
Have you ever had a hard breakup, Sarah?
Yes, I have.
And what made it hard?
That's exactly what I was thinking of. I've had two really hard ones, and they were both unexpected. I didn't see them coming in anyway. And then I had a really hard one where I was the person breaking up, and that was very difficult because I felt like I was breaking the other person's heart, and that was hard.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because when I was thinking about hard breakups for myself, actually, I initiated one of them, but only because I was the person to say it out loud. The other person was doing everything they could to end that situation, but not be the person to say it. So maybe the hardest part was the long drawn out, and that they did not behave respectfully to me, like I would hope to part as friends, even if you can't talk to each other for a little while. So that was bad. Like, why would you be so disrespectful and make me say it by upsetting me so? And then the other one I was thinking of, I've had a lot of breakups. Most of them weren't terrible, but yeah, I totally broke this person's heart, and they begged and stuff like that, and that made it hard too. So what I would like to talk about this time is hard breakups, both as the person doing the dumping and as the dumpee, and how to help people get through that. So let's talk about being the person who is broken up with, the person who gets dumped. Because in this situation, when it's hard, I think at least some of the time it's going to be hard because maybe you don't want the relationship to end or you're surprised by it. Although it could be hard for other reasons. You could mutually agree to it, but you have to rewrite everything. What advice would you give if one of your friends came to you and they had just been broken up with and they're surprised and they're not convinced that the relationship, or they weren't aware that the relationship should end, and they're hurting really hard? What would you say?
I like to always ask, so how are you doing today? How are you feeling? Because there's just so many emotions that are associated with the breakup, and I want to be supportive the best I can, and if you are really mad today, I'm going to probably try and support you differently than if you just want to eat a half-gallon of ice cream and cry all day. So I think I'd want to ask how you were doing.
So also recognizing that there's lots of different feelings that could be happening. You don't have to feel the same way through a breakup, but those feelings can be intense, or they could be intensely non-existent. Yeah. Sarah, what would you say to somebody in that situation?
I think I would say something similar, and I would also ask them what they want me to do, like how they want me to support them. Do you want me to just sit here with you quietly and be a presence? Do you want me to listen? Do you want me to talk and you listen? Do you want me to put on a funny movie and cuddle with you on the couch and hold you while you cry and laughter happens? Like, what do you want me to do today?
I think that there's some sort of assumption or stereotype that breakups are not supposed to hurt so hard. That, it's not real pain because it's something we'll all have to go through, or because you should be better than that somehow or something. But we've all had breakups that hurt really hard. I'm wondering if we can all just be a bit vulnerable and not share the story of the breakup necessarily, but instead just share what it physically and emotionally felt like. Just descriptive words of what it felt like.
Just hollow.
Yeah, hollow.
I felt like someone had physically kicked me in the chest.
Yeah, and what does that feel like?
Short of breath, painful. I felt physical pain from it, and like I was fighting to regain control of any bit of myself, because it felt like I was off balance and hurting and crushed.
I remember a ripping feeling. And almost like this desperate need to put the part that had ripped away back, and it was almost a tangible feeling. I can't honestly say that I know anything about feelings of withdrawal, but the way it's described to me, it felt very similar, like almost a dependent sort, even though I was not dependent in the relationship. The missing of the other person or the anticipation of missing them very shortly had a physical pain of ripping and wanting to replace with the same person.
And it did feel in those moments like I would never not feel that pain again.
Oh, yeah.
A time in the future where I wasn't feeling that didn't seem possible.
Mm-hmm.
During one of my breakups, I actually had some physical symptoms of it. We'll just say I had some extreme GI upsets for a couple months afterwards, and I think it was an anxiety produced thing. There was just constant reminders of the relationship and of him, and every time I did, it just upset my stomach, and so that was pretty miserable.
I have a lot of dwelling on the other person. Like, I have to rewrite the assumptions and how I think of structuring my day and structuring the future days. And I end up having to remind myself over and over again that that person is not going to be a part of those days. And so then there becomes almost this thing, this really noticing whenever they cross my mind, or and I think, oh, I can't wait to text them about that. Oh, even if I would text them, it would be different now. But we're not texting now, or we're taking a break from that, or it's a different thing. So there's almost this compulsive thinking about the other person for a little while, meaning too long.
And I feel like you don't really think about when you're in a relationship, but how many things trigger your thought process about a person. A song or a smell, like if you smelled cinnamon rolls or something, and that was a food that they enjoyed, and it just instantly makes you think about them.
Yeah. Any other thoughts come to your mind, Sarah, about what it's like or kind of the process?
Not right now.
So I think also there can be difficult relationships where they're an ambiguous loss type of relationship in technical terms. So you kind of figure out it's over because they've disappeared, but there's not the confirmation of it being over. And so that can have a lot of feelings too. So you don't get the closure of something being over unless you decide it for yourself. You haven't talked to me in so long, or you haven't called me sweetie in so long, whatever it is. So now I'm determining that it's done. But this can accompany ghosting, which is when the other person just kind of disappears and doesn't break it off with you. Now, make no mistake about it. I think that ghosting can be absolutely appropriate in a risky or violent situation. Fade out, disappear, don't say anything. All bets are off, and etiquette is off if you need to do something to protect your physical or emotional safety, right? Financial safety, whatever kind. But short of those situations, it's probably one of the most intensely disrespectful things you can do to another person as far as the way to end a relationship goes. Well, it's probably tied with a few other things that are really terrible. I'm sure there's some sort of extreme example that's worse. But as far as things that I hear happening very commonly, I'm really shocked by how commonly that one occurs. So there can be ambiguous loss, sort of grief and confusion and anger as well. So some of that may overlap with things that we're describing, and some of it may be different too, without that kind of resolution sort of thing. I don't know. Have either of you? I know I've experienced that. Actually, two of my more recent breakups were ambiguous loss. Has that ever happened with the two of you?
Yes. I did have a relationship that ended that way, and it was heading that direction anyway. Mm-hmm. And I think that we were both, considering our options and whatnot. And so communication was getting less frequent, mm-hmm. And that was on both people's parts. But I don't want to say it's confusing, but it's, do I make the effort one more time? Do I put myself out there again, or do I just let this go? Well, they haven't tried to communicate with me, and it just, it would be much simpler if somebody just said, you know what, I think that we just need to talk about how to go from here.
So sometimes it's mutual drifting, it sounds like, but even then it can be helpful if somebody just says it out loud because there's that awkwardness of how do I handle this mid-drift now. So that can be difficult, but it can even be a conversation like, I've noticed it seems like we're kind of drifting apart at this point, and I'm not feeling a real strong push to not drift apart. But maybe it would just be a little less awkward if if I checked in with you and maybe we're both feeling like it's time to just let this finish drifting. But, we've also put it out there so we're not wondering where the other person is. How are you feeling right now?
In general, I feel fine.
If I was breaking up with you, I would say that.
Oh.
But also, how are you feeling right now?
No, I would have appreciated that conversation for sure. And I think that it can tie up the loose end for the future.
Yes.
In my situation, a few months after the fact, I just randomly ran into this individual again.
Oh, awkward.
It was very awkward, and I didn't quite... And I thought that my feelings had been resolved, but once it was suddenly presented in my face again, half of me wanted to have a horrible big discussion about it. Half of me just wanted to leave. Half of me wanted an apology, and half of me said, that's not good enough. And so it was very... I just ended up walking away from the situation and leaving because I didn't feel that any communication at that point would have made anything any better.
So there was no knowing like the expected roles or what you're supposed to do because there wasn't a resolution sort of thing. And then at that point, it really wasn't a salvageable situation anyway. Mm-hmm. It's better to just walk away from that, which leaves it ambiguous, but maybe just kind of it's too late now. Mm-hmm. Actually, there's not really anything ambiguous about looking at the other person and walking away. That actually is pretty concise. What are you thinking right now, Sarah?
I've never experienced ghosting from anyone that I was in a longer term, more intense, emotionally invested situation, but I have experienced it in shorter term things that I thought were going well, and then all of a sudden people had disappeared. But the most recent one was the most confusing one, where it was someone who didn't just not respond. It was someone who would respond every once in a while with like you're awesome and amazing and I still really like you and I can't wait until I see you again, and then would disappear for like 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then I would get that type of a message again. So it was a weird thing where like it didn't even have the ghosting end. It had like this trail of hanging on for
things,
and that was really strange until eventually it just faded even away from that. But it made the ghosting process strangely longer, so...
That, I have no idea of this situation or this person, but it almost feels like, maybe somebody needed to take responsibility for just letting that door close. Like, maybe it can feel flattering to string somebody along and keep that option open, but that's not okay. That's not okay to treat someone like that. They're not there for your flattery or your plan C or whatever it is.
Yeah, it was not okay.
Not okay. Huh. So if somebody's been broken up with in any of these ways, what would you, after I remind people of what station they're listening to, I would like to hear from you what your ideas are for, what you would tell them or tips for surviving a breakup in the best shape possible, whatever the case may be. But just reminding folks that you're listening to 93.3 FM, CFRU, and you can listen to us online at YouTube, and you can just go to YouTube and search Sexually Charged. You can also listen to us at cfru.ca, and you can send us your questions at asksc@uoguelph.ca, where student interns in student wellness will receive them and forward some of them on to us, help with editing, and all kinds of good stuff. So what would you suggest to somebody who is struggling after a difficult or ambiguous breakup?
I would say... the first thing is, if you're not okay, you don't have to pretend that you are.
Nice.
It is okay to let yourself fall apart a little bit if you need to. And if someone is asking you, what are you feeling? What do you need from me today? I think we have a tendency to be like, oh, no, I'm fine. It's okay. And it might tie back to that feeling of it's not supposed to feel that bad.
I was really embarrassed. Every time I'm real embarrassed by how bad it feels.
Right. So if you have a friend that's asking you what you need, it is okay to say what you need. And it's okay for that thing to be that you need them to do something for you. It's okay for that thing to be that you need them to go away so that you can curl up in a ball and cry with your box of tissues for the afternoon and then have them come back tomorrow. It's okay to be upset.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to say you're fine.
What do you think, Michelle? I would say it's a tough topic, and I think actually your quietness speaks to how easy it is to be at a loss how to handle it, because it's going to be hard no matter what, right? It's going to be difficult, and nothing. Sometimes some people break up, they don't care. I've had breakups. I didn't care. I was happy. We were both mutually relieved, whatever. But if it's going to be hard, it's going to be hard, and there's nothing you can do to make it not hard. But I think one of the things that's really helpful to me is to remind myself, even though I don't believe myself right then when I say it, that it's time limited. Because I think, Sarah, you brought up that it feels like it's going to feel that way forever.
It does.
I don't necessarily want other people to tell me that it's not going to hurt that way forever. I'm more likely to want people to commiserate with me and validate me. And then eventually when I'm ready to feel angry, because I know first I'm sad and then I'm angry and then I'm a different kind of sad. But the angry part is almost self-protective for me. Like it takes me away from the heartbroken distress a little bit. So it's helpful for me to remind myself that I will not always feel this way, and to give myself some sort of realistic time limit to notice I'm at least feeling different. So maybe I'll be like, okay, I know that in 2 weeks I'm still going to be hurting, but I'm going to feel different from today, especially if it's just happened. And I also try to remind myself and other people that the person who has broken up with me is no longer the person I'm going to turn to for support about this. Because sometimes the person that I've broken up with is the person I most want to support me because we've been supporting each other for stuff. And I also tell people who are doing the breaking up, you're no longer the person to offer that support. In a weird way, it's almost kind of cruel. Like, I get you want to do some caretaking on the way out the door, but that's not going to be you anymore. You can invite other people to step in and help on your behalf. But, so if you're the person who's been broken up with, it might be time to rekindle some friendships that you haven't been spending as much time on, possibly, or have been spending a lot of time on, and ask them to be your resources, even though that might feel weird because you've been putting your emotional resources into this other person. Because I always want to go back to that person and have them make it better, but they can't. It's over now.
I also think it's important to acknowledge that no matter the relationship and how you feel about the relationship, it's still okay to be sad about it and have those feelings because it's still been a part of you for a long time. I had a relationship where it was very easy to say that should have ended. It was not a good relationship. And so when it ended and it was hard on me, it felt like it shouldn't be hard on me because it wasn't a good relationship. And so it took a lot longer for me to deal with the fact that it was hard on me because it felt like it shouldn't be, and I didn't want to tell anyone else that it was. What I wanted to say to everyone else was, yeah, that was terrible. I'm glad it's over. And while there was a part of me that was glad it was over, there was a part of me that had been in that relationship and still needed to deal with the fact that it was over, and I wasn't doing that.
It's a lot going on at once, and it also makes sense at the same time. I'm also thinking about wanting to be vengeful. So if somebody has treated you poorly, or you just are upset that the relationship is over and you don't think it should be over, sometimes people can feel tempted to feel vengeful. And I think the stereotype is that this will be cis men in straight relationships will engage in like revenge porn and things like that. And so I think it's also important to put out there that if you have been broken up with, if the person has harmed you or violated you or been abusive in some way, seek support for yourself with that and how to go through that process. And it can be an appropriate part of that to disclose what has happened to you, whether that's to a therapist or to some sort of law enforcement or to family members or friends or loved ones or whatever. It's not okay to do something to get back at them for breaking up with you, right? So you don't get a right to destroy their reputation because they've chosen to end the relationship. So I think about these revenge porn things, and it just, I think people are not necessarily aware of the damage they're doing to the other person. People have a right to end relationships, whether we agree with them ending the relationship or not, or whether we like it, or whether it's embarrassing, or whether it hurts. Everybody gets a right to end a relationship without being punished.
I agree with that.
But that's kind of a bit of a hard truth. And some of the trust that our relationship partners put in us, you still have to maintain that trust afterwards. So you might have some friends that you share deep, dark secrets with, and you know that they don't blab to everybody, so you tell them more than you would tell other people about things. And then those are the kind of friends that you tell whatever about that person too. But you don't run around and ruin their sexual reputation. Or, tell everybody that they always brush their teeth while they poop. Or something weird like that, that is just a thing said in privacy or shared in privacy and trust. Part of being a good breakup person is not doing regrettable payback things, right?
Absolutely. And, secrets about that person. You've had a close, intimate relationship with them, and they have the same information on you.
That's true. Yeah.
So, I think part of you're respectful of that person in the relationship, you should also be respectful to them coming out of the relationship.
To be a good person, and also to demonstrate that you're a good person to the other people y'all know, because you'll date somebody else you know or get to know or meet in the future, and don't be that guy or gal who is petty in really damaging ways. Yeah. If you were to give advice to somebody, and I know I've talked about this before on the episode, but I'm interested in hearing what other people say on how to break up with someone ethically, what would your suggestions be? You have decided the relationship is done. You cannot be in the relationship anymore. How should you be the best person possible in the relationship?
I feel like you should definitely take time for that person. It should be done in a private location, so long as you feel that it's safe to do so.
Right.
And to make sure that you have them penciled in for more than the 15 minutes it's going to take you to say their part, because I think that it's only fair to allow them to ask questions and figure out what went on, and they shouldn't have an open-ended time frame for you, but to give them a decent amount of time if they want to talk and process something with you and do that. So definitely face-to-face in a quiet, private environment.
Yeah. I often think that it's a good idea when you're already on your way over there to do this thing to let an outside party know what's about to happen. So you might say like, hey, best friend of my soon-to-be ex, I would really appreciate if you'd let me deliver this information first. I'm on my way to do it now, but I'm about to end the relationship with so-and-so, and I'm wondering if you could just check in on them in a little while. I don't know, do you think that's a good idea, or do you think it's a crap idea, or do you think it depends on the situation?
I've done that before, not before I told them, but right after.
Maybe that's better.
As I left, I called a good friend and was like, I just left this person. They're very upset. I'm a little worried about them, but as you said, I can't be the person to stay and comfort them because that's actually going to harm them more.
Yeah.
So can you please check on them?
Yeah. Bless you. I think that's wise. The afterwards thing is probably better. Yeah. And also the person maybe doesn't have the opportunity or the righteous excuse to say like, how could you tell someone else before you tell me? So then that's good probably.
Well, and if you tell someone beforehand, they might decide to come on over and
or send a text message right away or something.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah, that's messy. Okay, I take that part back. That's a better idea. Right afterwards.
Yeah.
I always tell people, don't stretch it out. Don't wait for the right day. Don't wait for the right time. Don't wait for the right moment. If you know it on that person's birthday, that's very unfortunate, but don't fake it through the birthday. Mention it then, because otherwise they're going to look back on it and be like, oh, that whole birthday thing was a lie, and that's going to feel like crap to them too. A lot of times people do realize they want to break up with someone around an important day, a birthday, a holiday, something like that, and an anniversary. And I don't know why humans work that way sometimes, but once you know, do it, cut it off in a concise and direct manner, not using a ton of flattery and stuff like that, but just announce it. You know, be there, find that place. You know, they probably know it's coming if you've said, you know, we have to talk or whatever it is, and just say, you know, I'm sorry, but I need to end this relationship. I need to end this. And if the other person responds in a way that's unsafe, exit the situation quickly. And don't plan to hang out a whole long time. And don't have sex right after you say it, because that happens to a lot of people. They're like, oh gosh, we're over. And then they have sex, and the next day they're confused about what that means. You both look, have you not heard of breakup sex before?
I've done it once.
Was it a good idea?
No.
Sometimes the breakup sex is really good, but then it's still usually a bad idea.
Yes, that's a bad idea.
Confirmed. Any other tips on how to break up with someone well?
I have practiced what I'm going to say so that the words come out in the way that I want them to be, because it's a lot harder to say something succinctly than it is to say it in 5 paragraphs. And I think when you're breaking up with someone, succinct, but as kind as you can if the situation warrants it, which most of these breakups, if you're taking the time to do it in person, would warrant it. So I think saying it succinctly and kindly is important and hard to do at a spur of the moment. So I don't mean have a piece of paper in your pocket that you pull out and you read from, but practice the way you're going to say it a few times so that it can flow smoother and help things be a little easier for you and come out better for them.
Time apart after a breakup. Necessary, not necessary. Let's say there's the intention or hope to try to have a friendship later. Is there still like a separation time of no talking? Yes.
Yes.
You sound like you have a strong feeling about this, Michelle.
I do. I think that I'm friends with most of my exes. However, initially, it's not usually a mutual decision. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the time apart gives each person an opportunity to really find themselves, get restabilized, and get to a good place where they see that life is moving forward and it's good, mm-hmm. even on their own or with someone new. And it gives you a good opportunity. Otherwise, I feel like there's a constant negotiation that's going on between the person who's, unhappy with the breakup. If you continue contact without a break.
Yeah, you have to start a different kind of relationship with them, and that kind of makes a do-over. Mm-hmm. Do you have a closing thought for us, Sarah?
I also think when you're talking about the time apart and the desire to be friends afterwards, that it is not the person who has done the breaking up's job to decide when it's okay to be friends again. Mm. So I think the first contact for when the time has passed should usually belong to the person who was broken up with.
A good closing thought. Let them take the lead. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Sara and Michelle, and thank you for listening to Sexually Charged.